Hi, everyone. Wonderful to be with you. Hi to people I met last week. Hi to a couple people who I didn't meet last week. And I'm Shamirah. I also go by Sarah. I'm in and out of so many Zooms that I just had to put them both in my name. It's great to be here with you. Just a quick show of hands. Who was not in the live class last week? I know some people weren't. So Becca and Pam. Okay, great. So just to name some people who wanted to try the free trial last week before they choose to do all 8 weeks. Some people just didn't get the email, like it went to spam, it went to who knows where emails go that we don't get. So there's still a couple of people who are testing out the class. Hopefully will join us for the 8 weeks. And also, if you just want to test it out, to try out Applied Your Spirituality, try out me as a teacher, and then maybe take another class in the future. That's totally fine. No obligation. We're so happy to have you. It is a really special element of AJS that you can, that first class is always free. So we're really happy to have you here. And just to know that starting next week, you will have to be enrolled and committed to all 8 weeks in order to go on. And just my only other question is, Becca and Pam, could I get a show of hands or you can unmute? Did you watch last week's session? Just so I know. It's okay either way, but I just want to, it's helpful for me to know.
I watched it.
Okay, Becca watched it and Pam didn't watch it.
Didn't get a chance.
Okay, no problem. Like seriously, totally fine. And basically, probably if Pam or Becca or anyone in the class has a question, it's possible that we addressed it last week and it's still fine to ask. Like there's just, this is a very new, complicated topic. So even if you were here last week, it's fine to ask a question, be like, maybe we covered this, but can you explain this better? So, and I'll just say, Pam, if you have a question, I feel like Pam, you should ask any question you have. Maybe wait partway through the class, but in the chat or raising your hand. And if it sounds like it's like too big, or I'm like, we explained this so great last week, I'll just refer to last week. But until then, you should feel that we want to hear your questions, because probably other people either have the same question, or like, even though I explained it last week, it could be helpful to just dig in a little more today. Okay, great. So I'm going to say a little bit about what we did last week compared to what we're doing today, and just how the course works. So um, first, we're going to just start with a little go around, and then I'll have more of an overview of the pedagogy and the content. We're just going to go around and just have like a mini kind of like one word or one phrase check-in. This could be how you're doing today. This could be related to your sleep and dreams. It could also just be a sound, but just to ground us all in the space together. And I'm going to call on you in backwards order of my participant list. And so I'll model, and then I'm going to go to Julian and then Sarah. So I'm going to call on you. Hi, everyone. Today I am feeling some accomplishment. I had an efficient morning. Passing it to you, Julian. Oh, it looks like Julian doesn't have sound on, so we'll pass it to Sarah. And Julian, feel free to type in the chat, or we'll come back to you.
I'm Sarah, and I'm enjoying deep work.
Thank you, Sarah. Passing it to Robin and then Pam.
I am Robin, and I teach tonight. Tonight's my teaching night on Tuesday, so I'm just trying to like maintain my energy through this, because then I have to go teach for 5 hours, teenagers. So this is like the timing for me. Like I'm just, if I'm a little low energy, it's because I'm conserving.
Makes sense. Okay, Pam, then go.
Hi, everyone. I'm grateful to be here, and just sorry that I can only be here for a little while, because Tuesdays are usually work days for me, but I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Go, aka Sarah, and then Becca.
Okay. Um, I'm Gogo, and wait, what was the question we're supposed to
Oh,
answer?
just a word or a phrase of just how you're doing today. Could be related to the class or not.
Oh, okay. I'm excited to be here because I'm really interested in what this class is going to be. I have a lot of crazy dreams, and I'm really interested in what dream work of Kabbalah is a subject I'm really interested in.
Awesome. Thank you. And Becca,
Old images.
thank you.
Hi. Um, it's a cozy indoor morning here in the Pacific Northwest where it's super overcast outside and only 50 degrees. Um, and I've always been interested in dreams, and I also know that you're a really amazing teacher. Um, and I've taken numerous courses with Rabbi Daniel in the past.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Becca. That's very sweet. So yeah, great to be with all of you. A funny kind of side comment about my teaching trajectory. A lot of what I've learned about Kabbalistic dream work was from here. I'm gonna hold up the two of the books. There's many more than two of the books, but a lot of what I've learned about Kabbalistic dream work has been from these two books from my teacher, Catherine Shamirah. They're linked in all of my emails and all the documents that I'm sending you. So, you know, but they're both Kabbalah and the Power of Dreaming, Kabbalah and the Power of Light. And also my teacher, Jill Hammer, and my teacher, Haviva Ner David. And they're all very, very different types of teachers. Jill is a PhD in English and a rabbi. Catherine is a psychologist, but also studied for over 20 years with her teacher, Madame Colette Muscat, who is a mystic and imagery healer. Haviva Ner David is a PhD and a rabbi. And my background, and I do also consider myself a mystic, but also a scholar. And so it's really interesting. I know some people here have studied with Rabbi Jill Hammer, who's a very important, dear teacher of mine, and would not be doing any of this without her in the world and without her support. And the way that we teach this work is very different. So even though I'm teaching a lot of the like concepts that I learned from Catherine, there are some things that I'm going to show you today where I'm going to quote Catherine, but then I'm going to show you a chart that I made. And the chart is based on what I learned from Catherine, but she never gave us a chart. And so I just want to name that because there's like a really different way of like mystics seeing the world, or like someone like me who has a master's in Jewish education with a focus on adults and how I want to, like, we would call it a graphic organizer, how I'd want to present information to make sure my students understand the different pieces. Yeah, Gogo, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of the Priestess Kohenet School or the School of Images before you mentioned them last week. So the only
Yeah,
reference to them that I have is from you. I love
yeah.
Rabbi Jill Hammer. I'd heard of her, but I have no idea she had a school, and I thought that was really cool. Why did it close? Was it
Yeah.
just or
Yeah, great
something?
question. I mean, there was it just like a lot of things, it was around for 18 years. There's a few newspaper articles if you Google it. Um,
Yeah,
I would say everyone involved has their own opinion of why it closed, but I like to quote something that Jill said at our final ordination ceremony, which I told her is the official answer she should give if anyone asks her, which is, we accomplished far more than we ever thought possible.
that's so great.
And it's but yeah, a lot of people are curious about it. And also I'll just say, Pam, not for this week, but for maybe another week. And Becca, just so you know, we're gonna go until quarter past the next hour. So in my time zone, that's 2:15. And I'll stay on for up to 15 minutes. We'll pause the recording if people have personal questions, just follow-up questions, and hang. And also I'm happy to talk about Kohenet or the School of Images more in depth during are like hanging out in the hallway by the water cooler with maybe some rugelach. Anyone have some rugelach? Oh, who's bringing the rugelach? And then we'll hang out then. Okay, amazing. So what we're doing in this class is we're doing a mix of text study, actually studying very specific sections of the Talmud. And today we're also going to see some medieval texts of how different Jews, mostly men, and rabbis historically would remember their dreams and open or interpret their dreams. And then we're going to actually do it. And the first step of all of that, which in some ways for some of us can even be more difficult than the actual opening, is remembering our dreams and then also writing them down in a way that they can be shared. And today we're going to be mostly talking about the writing them down part. We're not yet today officially going to be opening anyone's dreams. We're going to be moving into that practice slowly. But just to say that even if all you do for the first 4 weeks of this course is get into a better habit of remembering and recording your dreams, and you never read them out loud, you never show them to anyone, maybe you don't even edit them. I've asked people if they have time to edit them, and a few people emailed me, which is great. That on its own is a spiritual practice. That on its own, just journaling in the morning, processing your dreams. And that's something that you can get better at. I was recently asked something about my different spiritual practices and my different kind of self-help habits. And I was talking about writing down my dreams. And the other person was like, oh, so you're a writer. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I don't really think about that. But that's actually a huge part of this class is writing and is the recording piece. So we're going to talk about that as part of today's class. And then each week there'll be an assignment that will support that. Last week, we also talked about the idea of she'elat halom, or the practice of saying bedtime shema as you're falling asleep, and as a way to have good dreams, and also as a way to have your conscious mind tell your subconscious mind that you would like to remember your dreams. So some of today's class also will be just reflecting on that, like, how did it go? So that is everything that I wanted to say about kind of last week. And now we're going to move into this week. Julian had a hard time getting in, but now you're back in. I don't know what happened either, Julian. I saw you here earlier, but I'm glad you are here now. Did you want to just say hello and one word of how you're doing before we jump into our text? It's also fine to just type in the chat. Okay. 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 Julian says, I'm not sure what benote too good means, but I'm glad you're here. And we're gonna go into our text. So in all of our texts, in all of our classes, I'm going to provide the sources from Sefaria. They're very easy to print out or to turn into a PDF or even a Google Doc if you want to take notes like within the text. But also I'm always going to share it. So it really kind of depends on your like relationship to screens and text and that kind of thing. The only thing is just sometimes if you print it out, it might take an extra moment to find the text on the page because there's not really page numbers that are consistent with what we're looking at. So if you've printed out and you can't find it, please always just unmute or let us know and we'll help you find where we're on the page. All right, let's dig in. We're welcoming Beryl. Welcome. I'm going to put this on my second screen So if you see me looking to the right, I'm not, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking at second screen. Okay, beautiful. So I have all of you on my main screen, and then I have this one over here. All right. So let's start with the blessing. Feel free to say it with me or to say Amen at the end. Brucha at Shechina Eloteinu Ruach Haolam Utachat Sharei Halomot. Blessed is the presence, our Shekhinah of the universe, who opens the gates of dreaming. And let us say, okay. So what I'd like to do is we're gonna read a couple of texts, and then we're gonna have some reflection time. Could I have a volunteer reader for where it says messages in our dreams?
Sorry, Sarah, your share screen is still in your main document. It didn't link to the actual Safari page. Just
Oh, sorry about that. Here we go. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Do I have a volunteer to read out loud where it says messages in our dreams? Go for it.
Let me go. I'm gonna go to the okay. We dream several times a night, but we only remember some. Even within those dreams, only certain images stick with us. Similarly, there is so much surrounding us, but only certain things catch our eyes at specific times. If we lean into those dream and waking elements, there are messages for us there. The natural world is God's, or the spirit of the universe's dreamscape, in which we, humans, plants, and animals alike, connect and play a part. If God can speak to us through our dreams, why not through creation, which, to quote Edmund Jabes, is God's dream? As with an especially vivid or reoccurring dream calling out to be understood, nature can call out for our attention. It is up to us to observe, listen, and try to understand.
All right, thank you. I wanted to bring this quote from Rabbi Haviva Ner David just to help us ground in this, because I want us to just take a few minutes to discuss what she wrote, and just to name, like, whether we're reading Rabbi Haviva, who wrote this in the 21st century, or whether we're reading the Talmud, which was written, thousands of years ago. I want us to both try to understand what the author is saying, and then also reflect, is that our experience? Does this, does this resonate with us, etc. So now that some of us have tried this experience of trying to remember possibly more than one dream in a night, I'm really more asking about the first half, but feel free to reflect on the second half. How does this sit with you? Go ahead.
It really resonated with me because I did that this week. I had a dream that I wrote down yesterday where, because I'm disabled now, and that's been like a huge thing for me emotionally, because I've had a disabling autoimmune disease, and I have to go on disability. And I had a dream that I met an old friend from high school that became even more disabled than I did, and I had to push her around in a wheelchair. And then she said she didn't want to live anymore. And I took her to a cliff to watch a sunset. And I was like, no, every day you live, you get to see the sunset again. And I was like, oh, that was really corny dream, but maybe I was like telling that to myself.
I just want to pause you, go. I don't want you to share out the contents of a dream yet.
Oh, right.
But if it's okay to like reference it a little bit. So just, we might read some dreams, but
it's a jump towards. So then that yesterday, whenever I saw, like, I live in Pasadena, California, so it's full with gardens. And when I was walking my dog, whenever I saw a butterfly the next day, I would say the Shehiyanu. because I felt like it was a dream that was telling me to be grateful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That I appreciate that reflection. And I just want to both reflect on something you said and also just reflect on what I said. First of all, it's so beautiful because what you just shared basically was that you had a dream that actually really mirrors what Rabbi Ner David is talking about. That we have these dreams, and then somehow components of the dreams are reflected in the natural world, which is so beautiful. Whether it was the sunset, whether it was the butterfly, it was like you were more awake to these kind of beautiful natural elements because of something that happened while you were sleeping, and that somehow is calling you to a deeper understanding of the world, which is so amazing. And thank you so much for sharing. I just want to apologize for interrupting you when you were sharing that component of the dream, and just say a couple of words about why I said it, because I just want it wasn't because anything you said was disturbing or that we're not going to be sharing dreams in this class. I just want to be careful in that in this particular, I'm glad you understand. I'm just going to say it for everyone. In this particular style of dream work, the moment you start telling your dream it's not just the rambling thing, but I appreciate that reflection. That's totally fine. The moment you start telling your dream to another person or to a group of people, we're all like redreaming the dream with you, whether we try to do it or not. Like the same way if I were to tell you, like, this morning I woke up and walked to the corner and bought a coffee, you're like kind of you're imagining my body walking on the city street towards a place with coffee. Maybe you're not picturing my exact block, but like I'm kind of inviting you into a series of images that you maybe didn't ask for or aren't ready for, etc. So when we share out our dreams, two things. One is we're always going to say a certain incantation or like welcoming blessing before we do that, so that we're all super clear that this is now a time that we're going to be listening to the content of a dream. And then the other thing is we're going to try not to refer to dreams just from our memory at random times in the middle of the day, because, and we're going to be talking about this almost the entire class today, because our egos, and again, please tell me if this is true for you, but in general, we have the habit of our egos trying to make things more interesting or more like emotionally compelling, and we add things that weren't in the dream. So, for example, if I started telling you about a dream I had about, I had a dream, this is not a real dream, but I had a dream that like two little girls were like buying candy in a candy shop. Or maybe that's not the ego. Two little girls were buying candy in a candy shop. And I'm like, and they were really cute and they were wearing frilly dresses and they both had pigtails. Like, but if I were to write it down, those might not have been elements there. But like if I'm telling a story and then when you go to open the dream, it's like, well, is that part of the dream, or is that Sarah making the dream more interesting because she's like wants to animate the story? So we just want to be super, super careful. Yeah. All right, cool. Other comments or reflections on Haviva's paragraph? Yeah, Robin.
Oh, no, it wasn't on that. It was on
please.
what you
Yes.
said, and I'm sure you're going to get there anyway,
Yeah.
but in the format that you gave us with the dream template, where we write the dream and then we kind of rewrite the dream with additional details,
Yeah.
how do we add details without it doing what you just said, which is coming from an egoic place of wanting to make it more interesting, but actually have more details, because now reflecting on the dream, you're just filling in additional blanks that were also there that you didn't write originally.
Totally. Well, so a couple things. So we're gonna have part of today's class where I literally share my screen and with permission share some of the dreams that were sent to me. I think the people who sent to me was Julian, Robin, and Gogo who sent me dream samples. Is that right? Did anyone else send me one? And we're gonna actually do that together. And so some of it is just the dreamer's own kind of honesty, right? So like but what I like to do is think about the like objective reality of the dream. And also I want to encourage the dreamer to write down as much as they remember when the dream is happening. And then if they don't remember something, just literally write that. So like in my example, I gave you all like, I need a car, but I don't know why. So I included, but I don't know why. Right. And maybe when I first wrote down the dream, it wasn't important what the color of the car is. But what you'll see later when we do the opening is that people are going to be like, well, what color was the car? And that even the color tones of the dream as a whole can impact how we open or interpret the dream. But I really, really appreciate Robin's question, because on the one hand, you might have a first draft and a second draft where the second draft you like really fill in a lot of details, like a lot of details. And I've had both cases. I've had cases where I asked the dreamer, well, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by this? And they're like, you know, I actually don't remember if it was night or day. I wrote night, but now that I'm thinking about it, it could have been dark out, but it was daytime. Whereas and there are other times where they're like, I don't remember at all, or they're like, I'm sure it was nighttime. So just because you write it one way, you still might be questioned about it later and just clarified later. But in general, when you write down the dream, you want it to be as objective as possible. So you might write like, in this dream, I'm reconnecting with, an old lover that I haven't talked to in 20 years and that I would rather not see again in real life. But within the dream, it just felt totally normal that you were just hanging out. So what I encourage you to do is like, whether it's italics or parentheses, like get really clear on like what is like the dream material and what is the perspective of the dreamer within the dream. But then as much other information as you can give us is going to be helpful when we move to the opening. That's my short answer, which was kind of long. Okay. Anything else that folks might want to say, either just about this question or the Haviva thing, and then we're going to keep going. I'm just peeking at some of the. Bev says it is difficult to capture the mood, atmosphere, and feelings within the dream. Yes, and so this is also why, for now, I'm encouraging you to, when you're writing it, to be as descriptive as possible. Almost imagine that you're like a screenwriter, and your number one priority is the images, and the mood and the atmosphere and feelings, you can fill that in, but the kind of the like order of what was happening, and like if I had to now go like reenact your whole dream, I would know like who's there, is it night or day, etc. And again, the sooner we get to the opening the dream, you'll see kind of what are the most common questions of like, how do you feel about that person? For example, Sarah.
Yeah, I found it hard in writing down dreams to like parse out, is this a separate dream? If I had like kind of just strung them together and then was going back to edit later.
Mm.
But if I was like doing it in the moment, it was like pretty clear what was one dream and what was another. Like thematically kind of didn't seem to have to do with each other if I look back at it later, but it wasn't so clear what was what.
Totally. And I think also, and this is also just another really good example of like, how honest are you being with yourself? And also like, what is your goal with all of this? Because if like, I've definitely had a situation where I had 3 different dreams in a night, and I'm like, none of these have anything to do with each other. And also like dream number 2 is like the most interesting one. And dream number 3 is like kind of embarrassing. And then because I've been taking these classes where I bring a dream to Catherine since 2013. So I've had this experience, many, many times. And I also almost always have a dream to bring to class, whereas sometimes like I'm the only student who brings a dream. And I've had situations where I've brought all 3 like fragments of dreams, and I've had my mind totally blown of like a thread through all of them that I was like, I would not have figured out on my own. Maybe it's like a pun. Maybe it's like, there's like an orange shirt and an orange drink and an orange tree. Like there's like 3 orange things, but I didn't realize they were all connected. And I've had like my mind blown, and I've been so glad that I just like trusted the process and brought 3 like kind of fragments of dreams, including the embarrassing one. And I've had my mind blown. And I've had times where I'm like, you know what? I really don't feel like sharing these 3 fragments of dreams. I'm just going to share this little middle one. And like, sometimes I got something out of it and sometimes I didn't. And also sometimes I've shared 3 fragments and there is no connection and there just isn't. So one thing I do want to say though, just in response to Sarah, which I think is what you just said, is that if you have 3 dreams in the same night, we still consider it one dream. Even if it seems like it's like 3 different completely different scenes. And so ideally, sometimes you just don't have time in class to share all of it. And I might ask you to do a segment, but in general, you would consider the whole thing one dream. And again, right now, this point in the class and this group of students, especially some of us are very new to writing down our dreams. This is the practice. The practice is getting the habit writing down and editing them. Okay, great. I'm just looking at if there's any other comments in the chat. Pam said, oh, she's going to leave and come back. Okay, no problem. That's very sweet. Okay. Oh, yeah, Bev, go for it.
I don't know if you've already spoken to this, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand if dreams like thoughts can come from our parts, our ego or whatever, or come from something through us.
Yeah.
Are dreams also coming from these, either our human parts or coming to us and through us, the same as thoughts?
Does someone else, before I respond, does someone else think they can either like ask Beb same question in different words or start to answer it based on stuff we've already talked about? Does someone else think I'm just curious how it landed for other people.
I mean, I don't know if this is from what we did last time or from previous Dreamworking, but I would say that from a Jewish, mystical, Talmudic perspective, dreams are linked to prophecy. So some dreams, but not all dreams, some dreams are filled with garbage and nonsense or just, like on a neuroscience level, just sort of trying to integrate certain things that happen during the day or things that are still on the mind to get rid of it. But some dreams are coming from some higher source to show us something or to offer us messages. So I think it's both. Whatever you asked, it's like both. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, Julian writes in the chat, I think it's the subconscious or the right-hand intuitive side of the brain talking to us. Arguably, it's also connected to God. I would also kind of question, I guess part of me just wants to question the question. One thing we talked about, I think, Bev, you were with us last week, but maybe only in the second half. Is that right? Yeah. Is that we're also kind of working on a working definition of what is a dream. Like, is a dream like I went to sleep, these 3 things happened, I woke up, I wrote down the 3 things, now this is a dream? Or is dreaming something that is like thinking that's just happening all the time? And it happens that for around 8 hours a day, if you're lucky, you close your eyes, you actually see those images. And then if you're lucky, you remember those images. And then now that we're writing them down and we're calling those sleeping images a dream. And so I do think on one sense, it's like thinking, but more imaginal. But I also think that if we were to just like get rid of the word dream and just be like sleeping images, let's find meaning from them and just stop using the word dream for a minute, I think what we would find is some of those images are prophetic and are a message for us. And some of those images are just us kind of reliving parts of our day or anticipating stressful things in our life and aren't necessarily like messages from the beyond. One thing we'll do we're going to go back to the text in a minute and then look at some of our dreams in a minute. One thing that we'll do when we start opening dreams, and I know Julian has experience with this and maybe Robin also, is that when when you bring your dream to the dream council, which all of us are going to be a dream council for each other, when you bring your dream, one of the things that we do is we ask, is there anything in this dream that is day residue? And that's a term that that Catherine uses, it is in this methodology. So for example, if your dream starts with, I'm shopping at the farmer's market, and then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then I left with a fancy $10,000 handbag. This is like a weird dream that I once had. Like, I would say to that dreamer, have you been to a farmer's market recently? And I'd be like, yeah, I go every Saturday, right? They're like, do you own a $10,000 bag? No, but I walked through Midtown Manhattan and saw a store that was selling them and was thinking about how ridiculous that is. So like, we actually might take out the farmer's market isn't symbolic, it's literal. And the bag isn't symbolic, it's just literal, but everything else is symbolic. And then in that sense, you might say that, that's another way of answering it, that like the images, some of the images are, what images are dream material and what images are day residue. And I sometimes use a highlighter actually, or other types of formatting to separate out what's really the dream and what's just my brain like remembering something that happened. Yeah, Bev.
I just want to add, because synchronicity is important to me, the whole time you were answering my question, the northern flicker was at the feeder and then it just took off. So there's meaning to it. I just have to look up the spiritual meaning of a northern flicker, and this is happening all the time. So thank you for that
Okay.
answer.
Okay, beautiful. And I will just say, I'm going to share my screen and go back to the text for a couple more minutes, is that in one thing that's really also important about this methodology is that there are no universal symbols in Jewish dream work. You're going to see that what the rabbis do is they talk about what a symbol means to them. To them. And so if I have a dream about a bird doing something really interesting, you're going to ask me, what's your relationship to birds, or what's your relationship to that type of birds? Whereas someone else who lives in a different part of the world or doesn't live in a city is going to have a different relationship. So whereas people love looking up, dream dictionaries, there's not a universal Jewish dream dictionary. And what's fascinating, the more of the Talmud you read, you'll see like what symbols are important to the rabbis. Okay, so let's peek at a couple of sections of our text, and then we're going to go from there. We will go to looking at some dreams and also just reflecting on our experience of remembering our dreams. So this is actually from Masechet Shabbat and Masechet Brachot. These are two sections that we're not looking as closely at of the Talmud, but I think they're important. I'll remind us that in class, we're going to read out loud the English. Anything that's bold is a direct translation of the Talmud, and anything that's not bold is the translator filling it in to help us follow along. If you are a Hebrew reader and you see something in the Hebrew, please let us know that what's happening, but we're going to mostly discuss from the English. Do I have a new volunteer reader where it says, Rav Yehuda said?
I can read.
Go for it.
Rav Yehuda said, and so too one should be joyful before stating a matter of halacha. Rava said, and so too one should be joyful before going to sleep in order to have a good dream.
Okay. So again, of course, it's funny to think about the perspective of the rabbis. What is the rabbi's favorite thing? Talking about halacha or Jewish law. So they're like, what makes me happy? Talking about law. And if you want to have a good sleep, you should be joyful before going to sleep. And so this relates to something we talked about last week of the idea of before you go to sleep, what are some things you can do to influence your sleep, or to have a deep sleep, or to have sweet dreams. Let's look at this this next passage, because we're talking about influencing our dreams. Becca, would you continue for us, please, where it says similarly?
Similarly, Rabbi Hanan said, even if the matter of dreams even if the master, I need to make it bigger.
Uh-huh. I can probably make it bigger.
No,
Don't
I
worry.
made it bigger. It's
Okay.
okay. I can do
Okay,
that.
good.
Um, Even if the master of dreams, in a true dream, an angel, Ma'ayan Haberachot, tells a person that tomorrow he will die, he should not prevent himself from praying for mercy, as it is stated, for in the multitude of dreams and vanities there are many words, but fear God. Although the dream may seem real to him, that is not necessarily the case, and one must place his trust in God.
Thank you. Thank you for reading. And this is a really good example of how much I appreciate this extra non-bolded line, because the Hebrew is Ki et Elohim yirah, which it literally is translated as you should fear God, but really it's in awe of God. And I love that the translator added place your trust in God, which is just to say, even if you were to have a really scary dream, or if this Baal HaChalomot, someone who's an expert and master of dreams, were to say, oh, this angel gave me this message that you're going to die. This doesn't mean you're going to die. Actually, this is actually an opportunity to come closer to God, pray for mercy, etc. And to me, what this says is, even if you have a really hard dream, instead of being like, oh, I'm cursed, I have like bad news coming, it's like actually an opportunity to get closer to God and trust in the process. And again, like some people here do tarot, when you get the death card, it doesn't mean death. It means like death of the ego, or death of this part of yourself, or, you should quit that job, or you should break up with that person, or you should, stop going to that restaurant where that person's mean to you, or whatever the situation is. Okay, I'm gonna pause sharing my screen, and we're gonna come back to this at the end when we're talking a little bit more about remembering our dreams. Comments and questions before we go to the next piece? Okay, so what I want to do now is some of you sent me dreams and some of you didn't, but I hope that everyone at least tried to have a journal by their bedside on their bedside table, do some remembering and recording your dreams. And again, for the next 30 minutes of our class, we're not sharing our dreams to open them or to say what they mean, but we're reflecting on the experience of doing some sort of bedtime shema or she'elat halom and dream incubation before we go to sleep, having a dream or not, probably having a dream no matter what, and then waking up either in the middle of the night, in the morning, writing down as much as you remember, and then if there's time, doing some editing of that dream. So first, we're going to just go around. Anyone who wants to reflect on that, it was hard, it was easy, it was meaningful, it was frustrating, how'd it go? And then those of you who sent me dreams, we're going to look at them, a couple of them, again, not to open, but to look at the process of that person's process. So I'm curious who wants to reflect on how it's going, or how to go. And we're just as interested in it was amazing, it totally worked, as we are in like it was really hard and I also didn't do any of it.
I can share.
Great.
Um, so I managed to write down 5 dreams, and I found it kind of difficult to sort of like leave dreamland and and like make
Mm-hmm.
that transition into I was using my phone to write them down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think on the first couple of days I was just trying to like keep repeating like the things I remembered from the dream in my head if I couldn't really open my eyes yet and like write, and that helped a little bit. And then yeah, most of the like annotation that I did was sort of like explaining who people were in my life, like just like thinking of if someone else were to read this, and trying not to like interpret it too much, but to like explain
Mm-hmm.
it to an outsider.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. And great. All right. Who else would like to share? And by the way, I just want to say that was a good example of she's like reflecting on the process without sharing the content yet. Cool. Anyone else want to say, yeah, how it went? Go. Yeah.
Um, I wrote down a lot of dreams and I started really remembering them, I think, from writing them down. I did my doctor prescribed me naltrexone this week though, and it does have the side effect of making you have really vivid dreams. So I took it one
Mm.
night, and actually my dreams were so vivid I couldn't sleep. And I wrote
Mm.
like tons of dreams I also used notes in like my iPhone. And then I was like, I don't know, I didn't transcribe those dreams in the template because I was like, these are like drug dreams. And I stopped
Mm-hmm.
taking actually because I didn't want I thought it was like too disruptive for my sleep, but I might talk to her because maybe it goes away. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so that there was one problem with medication.
Totally. And like, just to say, like, we talked about this a little bit last week when I mentioned about thyroids. If you've had your thyroid removed, or if you have, is as we age, our thyroid just decreases in function. Just that can make it difficult to remember your dreams. We actually know that children dream more than adults and remember their dreams more and feel and have more vivid dreams than adults. They also dream more about animals, which is very interesting. Um, anyways, but it's significant, and there can be all kinds of physical health reasons. You had alcohol, you had a cannabis edible before bed, you had a CBD gummy, whatever that can all of these things can impact your dreams. And also, especially in terms of this class, like I definitely don't expect anyone to bring more than one dream a week. And if there's zero, there's zero. And even if every single person brings a dream, we're not going to have time to read every single person's dream. So it's also okay if you skip a week or, whatever. But thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? We're in a minute. Yeah, Beth, go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to say that I'm not doing this practice right now. It feels like it's too much.
Mm,
There's enough going on during the day and changes
mm,
within me with what I'm doing that I can hardly, like it takes time for the nervous system to change. And it just
mm,
feels from the sense of knowing this is not the time for me to do it.
mm,
But I'm so interested. That's why I keep coming back, but I'm not doing that practice. I do have a prayer thing that I do when I get up in the morning and also when I go to bed at night. And I seem to fall asleep okay and whatever. So it feels like it's not the time, and I'm not having the remembrance of dreams right now. But
mm.
I really find this so interesting. So.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that. And with 8 people in the class, even if everyone brought a dream every week, we still wouldn't get to everyone. So I think it's just in terms of like the flow of the class, the first 4 weeks we're focusing on remembering and recording, and the second 4 weeks, the skill that we're focusing on is actually opening each other's dreams. So if Bev is here to, especially in the second half of the 4 weeks, to really to like help open and reflect with people, that's totally fine. And also, we're happy for you to be here and study the Talmud and have philosophical, spiritual discussions. So thanks for sharing that. Anyone else want to just say any reflections on trying it, not trying it, admitting that you told yourself you would try it, but like still haven't for whatever reason? You don't have to give the reason.
Well, I didn't try it this past week, but I've tried it lots of different periods in my life and in the recent past, actually. Um, and my challenge is that trying to make any notes during the night,
Mm,
it wakes me up too much, and
mhm,
I'm kind of
mhm,
not a great sleeper to begin with.
mhm, mhm.
Usually I'm waking up because I need to use the restroom, and
Yeah.
And, I just like kind of want to only half open my eyes and just kind of grope my way
Mm-hmm.
back to the bed, and hope that
Mm-hmm.
I go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And but some people have suggested to me in the past that I could just try to just write down like 2 words, even one word.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna try that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to set up like a little notebook right there,
Cool.
and have a pen right there, and even just one word and try. So,
Awesome.
yeah, it's very
Awesome. I love that.
frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. And
That's
like, oh,
and that's an aging thing. I used to be
yeah.
able to remember my dreams when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to like acknowledge and validate that like it is an aging thing. And also the peeing in the middle of the night can be an aging thing as well, or a different, life stage thing for different people. And I also want to just remind us all to like have some self-compassion for all of this. Like I definitely have nights where I have a dream and like I remember it and I get up to pee and I still remember it and I could force myself to write it down. And I'm like, no, I just want to cuddle my pillow and go back to sleep. And guess what? I do. And I forget it. And it's okay. And like, I feel like if I really needed to hear this message, it'll come back. And like, it's okay to not do it every day. And by the way, and I've also, like I said, I've been doing this since 2013. I've had days where I, had a dream. I'm like, I'm sure I'll remember it. It was so vivid and then I, blinked or peed or whatever, and it was gone forever. And then I spent the whole day being mad at myself. And like that just is truth of the universe, right? And now I don't really do that anymore, but I still sometimes do it. And yeah, and I will say give one really specific suggestion. And actually, Sarah a little bit hinted at this a minute ago, so I'm excited to. I was going to share it later, but I'll share it now. So in a um one thing that can really well two things. One is that why do we forget our dreams? We've all I would say I won't say we've all many people have had the experience of you have a vivid dream, you wake up, you're like, this was so fantastic, there's no way I'm gonna ever forget this. And whatever happens, we pee, we roll over, the cat jumps on our head, whatever it is, it just disappears. And like I actually feel like I can like feel it like fading away. Like it's not just I like feel it and see it fading away. It's different than forgetting. Because again, it's so vivid and so real. And I was just, I don't know, watching a tsunami or whatever. I was just doing this other thing. And I'm like, and then it kind of dissipates. And there's one really interesting theory that the reason why we forget our dreams is that there's actually like our brain secretes like a neurotransmitter that makes us forget our dreams. And that's actually something that is part of our human mental health system. And not everyone agrees on this particular theory, but there was once a woman who claimed that she, all of these fantastic things, and the doctors figured out that she thought her dreams were real. She couldn't differentiate from things that happened in a dream and things that happened in reality. And their theory was that she didn't have this neurotransmitter. And so we should actually be grateful that we have this neurotransmitter that helps us distinguish our sleeping dreams from our waking life. But and so basically, if we want to remember our dreams, there are all these things we have to do essentially to trick ourselves. And what Sarah Stern suggested is the following. So two things. One is if you wake up and you're aware that you're awake, if you can, you're going to close your eyes. And this is a rabbinic term. You're going to do chazara on your dream. You're going to review your dream. And so before you even open your eyes, if you can't wait to pee, go pee. But if you can do it even before you get up and open your eyes to the light and to the room, okay, I was at the beach, then we were in a car, this person was there, it was daytime. For some reason, I was eating an apple. Okay, get up, go to pee, and then come back and then again, lay down with your eyes closed, do the Chazara again in your mind, then get up and journal it. And so there's something about being in the sleeping position and like reviewing it that'll help you remember it. One of many tricks. I will be revealing a couple more before we say goodbye today. One of many tricks. Bev, yeah.
Sometimes I don't remember that I've dreamed, but something will happen during the day and it's like, boom, it's all there all of a sudden out of nowhere. I don't know what that is. I don't know what triggers it, but then we will write it down, whatever I can remember then.
Totally. I had that exact thing happen today where I had one dream. I woke up, I wrote it down. And then a few hours later, I like got a text message from my neighbor and I was like, oh my gosh, this person, I had a whole other dream about this person. And then I like remembered the entire dream and like the beginning, middle, and end and how I was feeling in it and like all this stuff. And it was like in the middle of the day. I want to name something that Julian is saying that's super, super important that also relates a little bit to what Bev was saying before, which is that like sometimes if you wake up and write down your dream, it makes it difficult to go back to sleep. And I just want to name that is true. That whether you're getting up to pee or you're getting up to write down your dream or you're getting up to feed your cat, that's what I do often very early in the morning. If you wake up and you do something, it can be hard to go back to sleep. And I just want to name like, there are times in my life where I'll go many, many weeks without writing down my dreams. And it's because I'm focusing on getting a certain number of hours of sleep. And that I need to prioritize getting a certain number of hours of sleep over the prophecy that's coming through my dreams. So I just want to name that. And like, I've also had people, I have friends who come to me for dream advice. And I also have one-on-one clients that I see sometimes. And I very regularly meet people who are like, I'm so stressed out all the time. I have 3 little kids. I have this demanding, stressful job. I'm constantly on airplanes. Like there are these 5 reasons why it's really hard to like do any of these practices. And sometimes, or even though I'm doing all the practices, I'm not getting deep enough sleep to remember my dreams. And sometimes I have to say to them, like, this isn't your time to work on this. Like you should fix those other things before you kind of push yourself in this direction. So someone like Bev could be like, look, I'm building these skills. When it's the right time, I'm going to go back to journaling my dreams. But right now, I'm just kind of nerding out on the skills, but I'm not going to actually do all the practices. And that's totally fine. And I think like Julian saying, like, if you're struggling with getting enough sleep, like you should just focus on that. And all right, bye, Beryl. Great to have you here. Hope to have you next week. Okay, Becca's reinforcing the stay in the same body position. Robin is cutting and pasting something about forgetting by MCH neurons. Yeah, cool. All right, interesting confirmation there. All right, beautiful. All right, so what we're going to do, and thank you everyone for sharing your personal experiences and for raising your hand and for being open around this. I really, really appreciate it. Robin, with your permission, I'd like to look at one of the dreams that you said. And what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll also share the link in the doc. And again, right now, we're not trying to understand what Robin's dream means, what prophecy she received, or tell her like the messages but we're just trying to reflect on the writing practice and the difference between kind of writing it down for yourself versus starting to learn how to write it in a way that you can share it with a group, with a dream council. So I'm mostly going to be kind of managing this next section of the class. And if I have questions, I'll ask Robin, but I'm mostly going to be, everyone should be giving input and reflections and continue to ask questions. Okay, we're gonna, so this is the doc, and we're gonna be looking at, and the other thing is, we didn't talk about this last time, but Robin followed the instructions on my worksheet, which as a teacher, I feel very grateful, is you should give your dream a title. And that's another reason why I encourage you to write it down and give it a title, because it's like there are a few different reasons. One is when you give it a title, it tells the people listening to the dream like what the dreamer thinks the dream is about. And it's also like a creative flash. If I'm just telling you like, hey, I had a weird dream last night, want to hear it, and just kind of rambling on, it doesn't give you that kind of conciseness of like if the dreamer were to summarize it in a title. So that's also just like information for the dream council. All right. In the document, we are where it says April 26th, frustration in Seattle. I'm also sharing my screen. Anyone not there and needs help getting there? Okay, amazing. Robin, will you read? So frustration in Seattle is the title. Robin, will you read just the first paragraph on the left versus the right? And as you're reading the one on the right, just you can tell us also anything extra just about your process of the first one and the second one.
Okay. I am out in Seattle with Eli and my mom. I park the car outside the library and we enter from the lowest level.
Also, sorry, one more thing. This is in the instructions. We didn't talk about it last week, which is I always have the dreamer write the dream in the present tense. And this is very important for a couple of different reasons. But part of it is something I mentioned earlier, which is that when the dreamer shares the dream with the dream council, we're redreaming the dream. And the dream is not a static thing that just happened in the past and it's done. It's still we're redreaming it and it still exists. It's still real. And so when we say if Robin was like telling her friend, I was in Seattle with Eli and my mom, that's kind of like the dream already happened and there's no possibility of opening it. So it keeps it open. So I always put this in the worksheet. And if you send me a dream and it's not in the present tense, I'll remind you to rewrite it in the present tense. And sometimes it can be very awkward. So again, you might have like 5 drafts and have to like write it in the past tense. Okay, great. Tell us about the edited version.
Sure. I am out in Seattle with Eli, my youngest son, and my mom. I park the rental car outside the library in an outdoor lot, and we enter from the lowest level.
Cool. I'm going to pause you there. Any comments or reflections on like part 1 versus the edited version? Oh, just Robin first. Robin first. And
Oh,
then
yeah. Well, I added my youngest son so that whoever else was opening the dream would have context of who that was, and that it was a rental car because I don't live in Seattle, so I'm out there visiting and I rented a car. And
Cool.
the fact that it was an outdoor lot, it just visually, as I was re-editing the dream, I just remembered that it was like it was an outdoor lot and the library was tall
Cool.
and we were going in through the bottom floor into this library. So
Cool.
those were the details that came to me.
Awesome. And I might add, like, I'm out in Seattle, parentheses, where my mom lives, or where I don't know why I'm in Seattle or whatever. Or
well,
like
that becomes obvious later
that
because
becomes later. Okay.
yeah, because I say in real life because I am going out to that area in 3
Got it.
weeks from now.
Got it. Great.
I will
Perfect.
be. So I would guess that's in my head that out there.
Great. Great. So we might not get to all of it, so that's why I'm
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
everyone else, just for the process. Go. What would you like to add or ask?
Oh, just it wasn't the really famous Seattle library, like the really cool one.
I don't know. I've never been to a library in Seattle.
Okay,
Oh.
but also I appreciate that question because that's the exact kind of question that we're not going to ask the dreamer for 2 reasons. One is that it leads to what I were talking about before, which is like, what are you curious about just in general, which it doesn't necessarily we don't need to know which library it was yet. Also, we're not interpreting the dream yet. And also for now, we're just talking about the process of remembering and recording. We're not trying to open it or picture it yet.
Yeah. Are you like, do you mean the Liberty Bell? It's one of the city's like
I
tourist
totally
attraction.
understand the question. I totally understand the question you're trying to ask, but we don't want to. The question you're asking, is it Library X? Like for me, it would be like, is that if you had been in Brooklyn, I'd be like, oh, is that the Brooklyn Central Library? What's behind that question is not helping the dreamer better understand what happened in the dream. That's like just my curiosity if I can picture that exact library. So we're not
Okay.
asking
It's like
those questions now.
if you said I was in Brooklyn and I walked across a bridge, and I would be like, you mean the Brooklyn Bridge?
But right, I'm so glad you're asking this question because this is the exact kind of thing we're learning. I would say, I would say to the dreamer, and again, we're not doing this today, but in the opening thing, I would say, do you know the name of the bridge?
Okay.
So
Don't say,
we wouldn't try to put something in the dream that wasn't there. So we would ask
okay.
like an open question, and the dreamer could say, I think it was the Brooklyn Bridge, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or they would say, I can picture the bridge, but I don't know the name of the bridge. But we try not to ask questions that put something into the dream that wasn't there. And just for today, we're not opening the dream or trying to understand the dream. We're just talking about the process of going from draft 1 to draft 2.
Okay.
Anyone else want to
Yeah.
just reflect on the comparison between the left and the right, or think about something that that Robin could have added on the right that would help the listener better understand, better picture the scene? Yeah, Bev.
I'm always interested in what time of the day it was. Was it light? Was it dark?
Mm-hmm.
The atmosphere. What else was going on so I can picture it more clearly.
Cool. So something that like we want, well, maybe we can even add is get into the habit of time of day and maybe like quality amount of light. I often ask, are you indoors or outdoors? But we're clear because we're clear on that. Again, we're just talking about the first paragraph. We're clear on that because I parked the car. We can picture they're in a parking lot outside of a building. We can actually all picture that. Awesome. Other comments and reflections on the left versus right. All right, cool. Let's just do the second paragraph and then we'll go back to our Safari page for our last few instructions for next week.
Sure.
I'm looking
for something on the higher floors of the library, but get lost in different rooms and can't find it. In one room, a man stops me and accuses me of stealing. I have a small spiral notebook, which is mine. I haven't stolen anything and stand my ground against him and defend myself to the library worker who comes over.
okay, great.
Yeah, the
So
edited version. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to have Robin read where on the right hand side.
Mhm.
And as she's reading, you're kind of picturing it. Again, we're not trying to interpret it and we are not trying to tell her what she should have done differently. But think about, are there other objective images that she could have filled in that would have supported the listener? Go for it.
I'm looking for something on the higher floors of the library, but get lost in different rooms. It's very maze-like from room to room with dark wooden high shelves filled with books and can't find it, whatever book I'm looking for. In one
Just pause for a
room,
second. I appreciate how you can tell that the dreamer is very clear with us, the listener, that she doesn't know what she's looking for, right? She's looking for something. We actually don't know what it is. So we're right with her on the like the dreamer knows what she's looking for within the dream, but the awake person is like, I know that I was looking for something, but I don't know what. Okay, keep going.
in one room, a man, stranger, stops me and accuses me of stealing. I have only a small spiral notebook, which is mine. I haven't stolen anything and stand my ground against him. I am angry and upset at being wrongly accused. I defend myself to a library worker who comes over to see what's happening.
Awesome. So I love also that I have only a small spiral notebook, which is mine, meaning it's not like she's holding a stack of books and also there's no other items that she's holding. So it's like, what else could she have stolen? That part is very clear. Okay. Other reflections on the process, Bev.
If it's possible to remember the actual words that were said, and also more of a description of the man or how you felt about the man would be important to me. And like as soon as I read, but getting lost in different rooms, it's very amazing. Like I'm getting into my feelings about the dreams that I have with that. So the more description there is this dream, it'll take me away from going into my own dream.
Totally. Great. And by the way, the like, how do you feel about this person question is a very common question that I feel like that is always going to be asked in the dream opening. And I wasn't say is as essential for the draft that is written, but also but like knowing that that's if we're opening your dream, we're going to ask that. It is helpful to say, you know, a man stranger stops being accused of stealing. You might add, you know, stranger clearly doesn't work there or something like that. Just like just another kind of layer of that. One or two more comments and then I have to go back to the other thing.
Are then the strange or in the library worker two different people?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, sometimes, again, I haven't carefully read the entire thing. Sometimes it can be helpful to just like give them like give like not necessarily give them a name, but just like or just describe them a little bit more. You know, a tall man, an older man, a disheveled man, a man wearing a uniform. Again, or again, a man stranger. I don't remember any characteristics about this man. Right. So just have that. And then, you know, for the I defend myself to library worker comes over to see what's happening, you know, you might add, I feel relieved that he arrived at the moment he did, or I'm confused if either of them work there, or just something about emotional tone of what's happening are some things you might add. There, again, this is a process. We're all learning. This is the first week. Thank you, Robin, for sharing your dream with us.
Just one just response to Bev. I'm so attuned when someone says something to me in exact words that really strike me that I record that. And like later in that dream, I asked my mom a question and she answered probably, and I put that in quotation marks because it was an exact quote from the dream of what she said. So I do try to do that. I think that's important too, the exact dialogue when I can remember the exact dialogue. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think, yeah, if you can remember the exact dialogue, great. I think that's a great tip. And if you can't, and you can just remember the gist of it, that's fine too. We are going to wrap up on the official time. Like I said, I will hang out. There's another exercise that I have brought to you that's in Catherine's book that has to do with time. And basically, I'm not going to read this whole thing because we're running out of time. But she talks about that time is an illusion. And if we were to go ask, you know, a parrot or a donkey, like, what time is it? They'd be like, what are you talking about? And that really humans have invented time, and dreaming is an opportunity to be outside of time. And so one of the ways to get into dreaming is to, again, I'm kind of joking about this, but I'm serious, like trick yourself to kind of bring your consciousness outside of time. And that's through this thing called reversing. And the idea is that you, as you're falling asleep, you look at your day backwards, and this will support you in remembering your dream when you wake up, because you're kind of going into this other conscious state. So and then this is actually a parallel to the bedtime Shema, which is about forgiving people that have hurt you during the day, or just difficult moments, because if we don't do that, it actually makes it harder to have this openness in our sleep state. Again, I'm not talking about unforgivable things. I think there are unforgivable things. I'm talking about little things throughout the day. We can talk more about reversing next week, but if you want to try it, it's here. It's also in this book. And then also in the handout, I have this little chart I mentioned before, the chart about the 4 stages of dream opening. We'll start learning a little bit more about them next week. next week we will probably not be opening each other's dreams, but we will be learning enough about the stages. That sounds like a cool library. We'll be learning about the stages of opening, so that by week 4, we're going to practice opening with the Book of Ruth. We're going to be looking at the Book of Ruth as if the Book of Ruth is a dream, practice opening on that, and then starting in week 5, we'll be opening each other's dreams. So thank you everyone for your presence. I'm going to stop the recording here, and